after I asked that question and I was intending on sending a gift, not only did I not get a response to that message, but when I went to follow up, the message turned green. I was like, I remember ruminating over a ghosting. Things were going good. It was a steady friendship and connection at that point, and we had been at least known of one another and connected with one another for at least a good period of time. I would say about 6 to 8 months, 5 to 8 months or so. We're both at a long distance, opposite ends of the country. Don't really know what I'm doing here, but I do know girl is cute. I do know we have amazing, awesome chemistry. We have built a decent friendship. So testing this out and seeing what it could be. Hey, and what's crazy is this also is like on the brink of COVID. If it's not at the beginning of it, it definitely is like right before it, right? So 2019. So it's like, I mean, I'm not really losing a whole lot. Even at this time, I know for me, dating wasn't, I didn't grow up in a setting where dating was prevalent. Dating was even allowed. Okay. So me kind of stepping out into these scenes, I didn't really think a whole lot through, right? Like long distance, I'm not even really driving like that. I mean, I have my license, I have access to a car, but I mean, I'm not really on my own, not living on my own. So the fact that I would even think I could date somebody long distance and be able to travel, visit, they come see me, that's not even gonna happen. Right? Like I'm still kind of in that space where I'm not grown. I graduated high school. I know I got some credentials to my name, but I'm not grown. Best believe I'm not there. And that's just complete honesty. But we were trying it anyway, right? And I was trying to figure out what to do. So I ended up asking her to send her address. I was going to send her an edible arrangement. I think the idea of an edible arrangement came from a gift that I saw somebody recently receive. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I mess with fruit. Maybe she does too. I know we had conversations about that. I was like, oh, edible arrangement. That would sound cool. So it was actually around Christmas time of 2019 when the ghosting happened, because it wasn't too long after I asked that question and I was intending on sending a gift. Not only did I not get a response to that message, but when I went to follow up, the message turned green. I was like, maybe her phone disconnected. There goes me rationalizing, right? Because I don't know what's going on. And it didn't take me long, because I ended up going to Snapchat, where we initially started having conversations before we took it to personal digits, and I got blocked on there too. So I was like, oh snap, I got blocked on everything. And so I actually went as far, kid y'all not, y'all, I was this crazy. I went this far to go back into an older Snapchat account I had, remembering her username, in which the original Snapchat I connected with her on was, and I typed that in, I added her, I got added back, and then I followed, I was like, so I got blocked on everything, got blocked on there too, no response. So clearly your boy had a struggle taking, in some way, shape, or form, someone's behavior as a no. Right. And so that one was a struggle. And that was a hurt that actually carried with me up to rejection that actually I was referencing earlier that happened at the beginning of 2023, because there were moments where in spaces of conversation where responses weren't so consistent, where I really was going through the motions, anxieties, my anxious attachment, it was all showing. And it took me experiencing that with that 2023 rejection to realize that I still hadn't really recovered from the ghosting in and of itself. And it wasn't something that I actually really addressed. Like, time passed, but I didn't really heal. You know, it was really interesting experiencing that. And as I'm just thinking about all these ruminations that don't just stop at relationships, they also carry on to sports, being cut from sports, all these different things that just stay in my mind. I actually had to start making decisions in order to heal forward. I couldn't just stay there. And as much as maybe I felt I deserved to stay there, as much as I may have felt I deserved to feel angry about somebody no longer wanting to be in my life, as much as I felt I deserved to be upset that friends who I considered close, who I considered real people in my life, ultimately fell away, walked away, started doing their life on their own. We're starting to enter into early stages of adulthood in our 20s. And so people are graduating, getting jobs, getting married, moving away. And so I was really in an interesting space, especially in my early 20s, where it was just a lot going on. And I think one of the greatest decisions that I ever made to overcoming those ruminating thoughts and perspectives was actually taking healing into my own hands and no longer allowing myself to stay and stuck in places that were no longer what I wanted it to be. It was no longer what I hoped for it to be. The relationship was not what I envisioned it to be. My anxious attachment, man, definitely made room and provision for thinking so far ahead down the line, right? If I met a girl, she was cool, she was attractive, we were really getting together along well, and I could see something bubbling up here. I'm thinking, shoot, man, I'm trying to think of future dates. I'm trying to think of future trips. I'm trying to just investing into all these different outcomes based on what's happening in the moment. And so when it didn't happen, it was a lot more devastating to me. It wasn't just didn't work out, I can move forward. I was nowhere near where I am today in terms of a secure attachment that I've been able to grow in, and I'm still growing in all fairness. But it was definitely a very, very, very tough time for me to really wrestle with it, for me to really digest it and actually move forward with it. And so when I decided to take healing into my own hands, addressing all those things, I really came to the conclusion that there were a lot of things that I was stuck on that was based off of me holding on to what I hoped could be and ignoring what was. And it didn't just happen when the outcome didn't show up. This was shown up through the whole process, because there were so many behaviors, so many indicators that let me know that even though I'm here and this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm looking for, they weren't quite there, right? We weren't seeing eye to eye on that. And they had perhaps a different perspective on the connection, a different desire out of the connection, a different agenda that they were carrying altogether. And so it wasn't really matching. And because of those things, I kept pushing it away. I kept overlooking it, attributing it to something else, rationalizing. It's not that they're not interested. It's just they're taking their time. It's not that they're interested. It's not that the messages are delayed or that they don't want to talk to me. It's just they're real busy. They got busy lives, and I do think to an extent there can be truth to that. I don't necessarily want to wipe that out completely. And I do believe that for my case, it was definitely something that I used as a means to stay connected and not see it as evidence to be like, okay, maybe this isn't what I want it to be. And because I envisioned so much with this person, I kind of didn't want to let it go. I really wanted to see how far I could get and how much could come out of this connection. And maybe if they would just get themselves together and change it, if they would just get themselves together and see what's in front of you, see what the Lord is doing, if they would just come along, this would work out. And it was holding on to those dreams and visions that just weren't the case. And so I found myself much like you, stuck. And I think when it comes to being stuck, one of the greatest things that we can actually do is simply accept reality for what it is. And oftentimes, especially as believers, really, really sit back and grow curious, if as possible, that God is actually behind the scenes of shutting this down, creating some distance from this person, from this relationship, because it's not something that is fitting for what he's ultimately calling us to, who he's ultimately calling us to be. And maybe it's not even necessarily just as much as a forever kind of stamp, like, oh, this person's just never supposed to be back in your life. Maybe it's just for a season, right? Because maybe there are some connections and relationships that aren't really able to become all it's supposed to be and be stewarded properly currently, because there's a lot that still has to be done within you and other people individually in order to actually appreciate the relationship in a different level at a different pace later on. Now, this isn't to give false hope by any means. What I'm telling you, however, is that, of course, there are outliers where people who were once dating at an earlier stage broke up, came back together, got married, lived happily ever after, had family, and, really did life together in the future. And I really believe that there are some cases where God can bring about a level of separation as a means of getting two or more people, obviously friend groups considered, but if we're speaking just romance and marriage and things of that sort, getting two people really in a space where they're actually getting themselves together, doing work with God, healing in some specific areas so they can come back and make the relationship as best can be. And then, of course, I think if you think logically, it's not so much about getting yourself to a place of perfection before walking into a marriage as much as it is, hey, do I have the capacity to support this person where they are and where they're going? Do I actually have the capacity to help them unpack some of the baggage that they're definitely going to bring in the relationship? Because I know I'm bringing some baggage into the relationship, and having the capacity to support one another and unpacking those in a gracious, loving manner to actually heal together, recover together, do life together, right? So I know that there's different nuances to all this conversation, especially when we're talking about romance, but just specifically to the idea of just dating, things didn't work out, experiencing breakups and rejections. There's just a lot of those moments that we run into where we are questioning who we are. We're questioning the legitimacy of the relationship. We're questioning a lot. And there's a lot of exhaustion that comes out of it, because we're thinking about how much we invested into it. And then what was on the other end of it? Well, heartbreak. And as a result, you end up being stuck. And this is how we end up in cycles of ruminating on breakups for 5 years. This is how we end up in the process believing that we need 5 years to heal from a 6-month relationship, 5 years to heal from a 1-year relationship. Some of us have been healing from 4-year relationships for 10 plus years, 4-year relationships for 5 plus years. Now, I'm not necessarily the one to tell you that there's an X amount of time to grieve. But if I do look at biblical precedents, okay, because we are all in the name of building biblical relationships. Even God gave Israel a set of days to mourn the loss of Moses, who's their leader. But he didn't give them all the time in the world. Like, he didn't. Moses dies at the end of Deuteronomy on top of a mountain. It is in Joshua 1, after about roughly, we could assume, a 40-day period, because that's about the time they were given to grieve. At least that's an estimated time. Joshua is encountered by God in Joshua chapter 1, and God says, Moses, my servant, is dead. And you are the one who is now called to lead these people. Now I'm paraphrasing after that statement. And so, of course, throughout that chapter, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. God is encouraging him, just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. But this whole entire picture gives us an understanding implicitly that we are not designed to stay at the bottom of a mountain of what is dead and what God has removed. So even though there is a period in time to grieve, and grieving is healthy, we talk so much about that over here. What we don't want to do is make our entire life out of grief to the point where we miss the life God is actually trying to call us to. What's happening, fam? Thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you want to watch the full replay of this entire conversation, I'm sure it's popped up somewhere on this screen, so be sure to click that. But also, if you guys are interested in joining a free safe space for men community designed to help you heal and get your life back on track in 4 dimensions of faith, relationships, energy, and economics, click the link in the description below. Be sure to sign up and join in this community so we can connect and get back on track to getting you back. Be easy.